Hi, and we're here with James O'Callahan, a real friend of NMC and someone that we have been proud to follow and to support. His music is widely performed and admired and always original and filled with ideas. He recently made a move from Canada to Berlin, but right now he joins us from New York. James, welcome to NMC.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Great to have you. As you know, this is our second round of our 50th anniversary commissions, a project born of the pandemic, where we ask composers to create brand new works featuring an ensemble of musicians playing from their homes into whatever equipment they have. So we were so thrilled with the results of the first round, and one of those reasons was well, you, because you gave us this much talked about piece still called O Coccoon, where you said you learned a lot and started a new direction for you. Can you talk about what this new direction is, and did this new direction continue in this latest piece as in a simile?
Yeah, very big question. But I guess I can start by saying that it was just such an incredible occasion to have that opportunity to create that work in the last commission for O Coccoon, that just the weird conditions around making work in that way, where, I'm a concert music composer. I'm used to writing works to be performed live with the public, and trying to figure out what I would do with the circumstance of working with musicians at a distance and having some kind of online element, a visual component, was for me an invitation to kind of get back to one of my first loves, which was filmmaking, and what I went to school originally to do. I didn't have a background originally as a musician, and when I went to study in my undergrad at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, which is a very interdisciplinary program, I thought, well, maybe I'll go into filmmaking so I can dabble a little bit in each of the art forms, a bit like opera, right? And what I ended up steering more and more into electroacoustic music and finally composing for instruments. And so I viewed that last piece really as an opportunity to try to scratch that itch I've always had to do filmmaking. And I found, if we're thinking about like new directions in my work, apart from just having the chance to dabble in filmmaking with that project, I really noticed that musically I felt a bit more liberated, or maybe I allowed myself to do different things musically than I would have if there wasn't a visual component. Something about that, the mixing of modalities opens up different affordances aesthetically. And so I think from that last project, when I've written, again, works for concert music, I think about it a little bit differently. Well, why did I allow myself to do that in that project when I wouldn't have, in a concert piece? And so somehow that whole experience just let me feel pretty free in exploration. So I was really grateful for the chance to do that again with this piece.
Great. Well, I think it worked out tremendously well. So, you did it again. You gave us this amazing and original work. What the heart of these pieces, I guess we're biased, but it's the commission, yes, but it's also the playing by NMC's amazing musicians. And here you put together a stellar group of players, and they're forming the basis of the sounds that you're using. And you've come up with this amazing original way to present the sound as kind of the Foley art or sound effects for the video. So I'm just watching through, and I'm wondering whether the footsteps and the typing, whether these were conceived of after you received sounds from the musicians, or were those video gestures, created kind of in your mind simultaneously as you were putting together the music.
Well, it's a really interesting way to collaborate. Like, again, as a concert music composer, I'm often used to having a lot of alone time to work on a score and then ship it off to the players. And then we practice together, we rehearse together. They come up with things that I would never have dreamed of. And, we exchange in that way. But in this case, because I'm sending them materials to record and then working with those materials, it's a little bit of a different kind of exchange. So I really saw it as a kind of conversation in the creative process, like sort of sending things back and forth to one another. And so what I sent to the musicians was basically some instructions for improvisations around some of these ideas. You know, the idea that the seed of the piece is this Foley Art idea, that the instruments are going to be making the sounds that you know, stand in for the production sound of a video. And we have like a lot of kind of classic or iconic Foley Art sounds like footsteps or, you know, birds or these kinds of things. And so I had basically kind of the list of those sounds that I wanted to play around with, and I asked them for improvisations based around those sounds. And I also included a big folder full of my own field recordings. So I have a big practice of going around and doing field recordings and recording real sounds that then I used in the electronics in my pieces. And I thought about kind of going about it in a different way, as offering those as a prompt to the musicians to respond to. So like I, you know, sent these recordings of pigeon wings fluttering, and then it's amazing what I got back, you know, like Christine Duncan, the vocalist, just made these vocal effects of wings fluttering with her mouth that sounded so much like the recordings of the pigeon wings that I recorded, that then, okay, now I have to go find a pigeon to video in order to like match that, you know. So it's this weird kind of exchange, but that was pretty much the process. So I, you know, had some sounds in mind that I wanted them to record, and some examples of that they were sort of meant to imitate. A lot of imitation and mimesis in my music in general. And then getting their sounds back was my prompt to then go out and do some filming and then kind of compose their sounds to the picture afterward.
Right. Okay. That's great. Yeah, and Christine's amazing. I mean, I couldn't hear a lot of vocal improv. Like Christine Duncan is an amazing vocal improviser. A few times I could hear it, but I was suspicious. I suspected that you know, she was making these sounds that didn't sound like the human voice that we were.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're all so talented at doing that, and that was a bit of the effect. And sort of the idea of the piece is that, you know, the brain immediately understands, like, oh yeah, that's the sound of the subway passing, or those are the footsteps, when, you know, really it's somebody going, or, you know, the violin, you know, being slapped or whatever, you know.
Right. Yeah. Oh, great. So, and when we started talking about this, you mentioned the idea about the concept of apophenia, or the tendency to find connections between unrelated things. Now, is that still part of this piece, and how does that fit in, if so?
So it's really that, and it's in that seed of the sort of Foley Art idea that, you know, in Foley Art, if you I did work a fair bit in film in my undergrad while I was studying music. Because I had studied film, I ended up becoming friends with a lot of the student filmmakers there. And so did a fair bit of sound design for films, and the kind of things that you come up with to try to get a more sort of a larger than life sound effect for something that happens on screen can be quite detached from the actual thing that you see on visually. So like once I did this film where they're scoring a fight scene, you know, and the director was like, it's not, you know, it needs more, right? And so I just got around like punching fruit and breaking celery and, you know, getting a big clay slab and just hitting it, right? Like, so things that are really not what you see on screen, but when you see it, it seems more real than the actual real sound that there is. And so like apophenia is the, you know, the general term for that concept of, you know, pattern recognition, the idea that humans are pattern seeking creatures and will seek out patterns where they're not there or in response to stimulus. Like the visual subset of apophenia is pareidolia. So like you, for instance, seeing a face, you know, in an object, or like clouds in the sky.
Right, we're hardwired to see these faces. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was basically the conceptual seed for the piece, is thinking about these things. And then you get into other things in the piece, like there's a sort of section that's to do with sleep paralysis, the I saw a figure in my room thing.
Yeah.
And the way that, you know, when you experience this phenomenon, you do have the impression of seeing somebody in your room, but it's kind of the brain trying to make sense of this strange experience that you're having, and kind of the way that you can convince yourself that something is happening, and getting into the sort of spirituality of that as well is kind of an undercurrent throughout the piece.
But... Oh, that's great. So so when you hear footsteps and or you see footsteps and you hear, you know, a violin bow on a string,
Mhm.
and the film kind of normalizes that. Your brain accepts it, right? Or if you're typing and you hear percussion, you know,
Yeah.
you've made it so our brain kind of, you know, accepts that. So that's fantastic. And all this takes place in Berlin, so where you've recently moved, and so it feels like there's some like a love letter to a city in the honeymoon phase when you know, you're getting to know one another.
Totally.
So what is it? Is there something about Berlin, the city, that are you able to articulate what's about this city that you wanted to capture?
I don't know if it was anything so concrete as that. I mean, part of it was just I need to shoot some video, and this is my immediate environment. Just like I appear in the film because I didn't have any actors, right?
Right.
So I hired a couple, right? But beyond that, like this is what is my immediate environment. So I'm going to explore that because it's what is at hand. But I think that you know, it's true that I just moved there and that
Yeah.
enthusiasm comes through. And so, you know, I got to hop around some pretty iconic Berlin locations. Tried not to go too far with it. You know, I felt like if I have a shot of the Fernsehturm at Alexanderplatz, like
Right.
that would be too much, you know,
That's too
something
much.
like
Yeah,
that.
it's not a
Right.
tourism video.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Although
I
there
did
was what looked like kite surfing in the background at one point. Is that, or maybe those are just kites? I was trying to think of where people would be kite surfing in
that's
Berlin.
at Tempelhoferfeld, the big park in the middle of the city that was an airport, and a lot of people do like wind skating or
Ah, okay.
I think it's called street kiting if you use it with a kite. So basically, have a skateboard or a longboard. So the
Oh, it's
equivalent.
okay. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Just um, okay, and you're clearly getting more and more confident with, you know, this video technology. I mean, we're seeing CGI in there too. You know, there's falling stringed instruments, and you know, there's water dripping on statues, or statues that suddenly smile. So we know you as someone who's amazingly adept at, you know, audio technology and manipulating audio. So to what extent does this expertise translate to video technology and manipulation? So is there crossover, or there similarities with this technology and technique?
Um, Hmm. Well, thank you, I guess, for saying that. But I definitely feel like a total, you know, debutante with video work, and so that's just I'm really thrilled to have the occasion to get to play around. And each video project I do, I'm doing more and more. I'm trying to learn something new, right? So I did study a little bit of film while I was studying music, and so I had that background. But I think yes, there's some crossover between how one works, you know, there's sort of the linear editor of if you have chunks of audio and time going left to right and you know, make the cut here, it's not that different from digital video editing and this kind of thing, very similar kind of interface. So there's
Hmm.
crossover there, but I would say that doing video effects is a whole different ballpark, and that's something that, you know, I'm brand new at. And so there's actually no CGI in the film. It's all
Oh,
done with kind of traditional effects of like compositing with green screens. So like
hmm.
the falling violins, I literally just put up a green screen behind my bed and
Yep.
dropped a
And drop.
violin multiple times.
Right. Okay.
And yeah, the little like water pane effect is like a pane of water dripping down, and that's composited with a little mask over
Okay.
the other frame of the statues.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, playing around with that, trying to see what I can do there. But I think, you know, I'm pretty new to it, so I don't feel nearly as comfortable with that as I do with
Yeah.
audio manipulation. Yeah.
Real CGI would, you know, be way outside the budget of these things, probably.
Right.
And the title's really great. Like, what can you, as an simile, is you know, it speaks for itself. Very poetic, but maybe well, maybe you can just it can be on its own, or does it relate to the piece, or what's the relationship? Do you want to talk about the relationship to the project?
Sure, it's really, I guess, you know, it's related to this apophenia thing, you know, like this is like that, and making comparisons between things and the kind of redundancy or mise en abîme of the title is that this is like things that are like things, as in a simile. Similes, when things are like each other,
Yeah.
this is kind of like that, right? So
right.
I'd like to twist myself into conceptual knots by, making things that reference themselves, right? So that's something that kind of continues to nourish my creative explorations. So it's really like that. So, in this piece where you have the collegno battuto striking on the strings of a cello for a footstep, and then you have the same sound being used to stand in for a door closing, or if shots of typing, first they are Anthony Thompson doing key clicks on the clarinet, and then they're Joyce To putting brushes, on the drum head, right? And the same sound is supposed to stand in for the physical action, but they're different. So it's a way of drawing comparisons. And so it very much is just a kind of poetic mechanism for the exploration between these things, and to, again, find patterns between things that are in fact quite unrelated.
Right. Oh, great. So we really love your explanation about this. It really reveals a lot. So that's fantastic. And I really love how it all comes together into this piece. So thank you so much for it, James. We really look forward to the premiere broadcast of your piece in just a moment now. So, it's been a joy to talk to you. So congratulations on your premiere, and we can't wait to run it.
Well, thank you so much. It was a great opportunity. We're grateful for it, and hope you enjoy.
Okay, thanks, James.
I had a dream last night. I saw a figure in my room. I tried to open my eyes, but it was as if they were glued shut. I tried to write, but when I pressed my pencil to the page, nothing came out. I tried to move, but I could not even lift my arms. I tried to speak, but but when I moved my lips, nothing came out. It was as though I had gone blind. When I moved my lips to speak, I heard a language that I did not know. I now believe you that it was not a dream.